Hey there.
Well, hello. You guys made it.
Yes, you made it.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for your patience. We're so excited to talk about this show. So, we are talking about Unprisoned, season 1, episode 1 today. I hope that y'all watched so we can have a rich discussion in the comments because we want to hear what your thoughts were, okay? But to open up, we're going to tell you a little bit about ourselves and why we're even interested in this show to begin with. So, I'm Anisha. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, just like the main character of the show. And I also have a YouTube that I am relaunching. So it's called Flutterly Lovely. You can find me either on Instagram at CPTMFT, which stands for Compton Marriage and Family Therapist, or you can find me over here making videos on Flutterly Lovely. And this is my sister.
It is I.
Yes.
I am she.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my name is Bayon, and I am the oldest of our tribe as far as the children, right? I do have two brothers older than me, but I'm the oldest girl, so I'm the boss. You guys can see on the screen all of my topics of conversation handles. You guys can find me there. We are here talking about our experience while watching Hulu set the tone for something that's really near to us, right?
Yes.
A father who spent numerous amounts of years in jail is returned to society, which is his daughter and her son. Well, here we are. Our dad was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
Yes.
And served 21 years in a federal prison system. And we are here to talk about it. It is so good that we have a therapist, right?
Yes.
To get us together. And I have another sister, Erica, who is also a therapist.
Yes.
And so we are surrounded by good people with good tools and things to help us transition. But what we don't have is an open conversation about what it looks like, what it feels like, and ways that we can better receive our families.
Yes.
So.
Yep. So we've never actually seen representation that's well-rounded and not just only centered on trauma when it involves a family going through mass incarceration. And I've also just never seen the reunification part where your loved one that's locked away for years or for a life sentence like our dad actually gets to come home. So we've been living that out since President Obama commuted our dad's sentence in 2016. So it's been some years of us just rebuilding what family looks like on, the outside of those prison bars. But most families never even see that part, unfortunately. So to have Hulu create a show and one of the producers share her personal story of experiencing this is really powerful. And so we just want to see if it's just light on what we've lived, So we'll be discussing main standout parts from the show that really grabbed our hearts, and we'll also be infusing parts of our story too. So are y'all ready to go on this ride with us through Unprisoned?
Unprisoned. And if you guys do not remember, it comes on every Friday.
Yes.
And then on Mondays, we will be here to talk about it.
Yes. Absolutely.
With that, can we roll the first clip?
So we have some clips for y'all. So let's get started with the first part that really stood out to us. Okay.
We gotta push it.
Have you ever wondered why you can pick somebody who's just totally, completely different from anybody you have ever been with before, but then you wind up feeling the exact same way that you always do? It starts in your childhood because what doesn't?
Okay, so I don't know if you guys caught that, but we're going to run it back, right? Just so you know. She said, have you ever found yourself dealing with someone who is totally different from anybody you've ever met or dealt with before?
Mm-hmm.
But throughout the time of that relationship or courtship, friendship, whatever it is, you find yourself feeling the exact same way, the way you felt with everybody else that you've ever encountered.
Mm-hmm.
What did she say it was called?
She said repetition what? It was so good, I wrote it down.
Okay, listen.
I got notes. Okay? I got notes. And I'm going to summarize, too, what she's really talking about, because in those moments where she sees recurrent patterns, which she called repetition compulsion,
yes,
thanks to my handy notes, I would summarize what she's experiencing as trauma. Trauma coming back up in new forms.
Well, let's talk about that. Everybody experiences trauma. So I'm not downplaying or emphasizing anyone else's version of what has happened over their life. What we have to do is start to label it what it is, where not just get over it, not just it happened, not just ...
Right.
But really label it what it is, and then utilize the tools presented to us through therapeutic and other ways, right?
Yeah.
Because let's keep it real. We are using other tools, right? And you're gonna see throughout today's event where we're using social media.
Yes.
This is a way that you gather tools to process things that are traumatic.
Absolutely. And even too, some people use social media as a distraction skill as well. So, which is still a coping skill, right? It just has to be put in its proper place.
Is it avoidance or coping?
It can be both. It can be both. Sometimes it is useful to have a distraction if you're feeling flooded by the trauma. But we're going to actually see her get into this a little bit later. But we wanted to let y'all hear where she kind of like expounded on this a little bit. So we're going to roll the next clip so you can see what she said.
And as we talk about, as we watch it, guys, keep in mind that this is the first time we actually see this played out from a community standpoint of people of color.
Absolutely.
And so let's see what we can gather from this clip.
All right.
It starts in your childhood because what doesn't? You know, like I always say when we're talking about relationships, parent and partner are just one letter off. How you got parented is how you get partnered.
Listen. How you got parented is how you got partnered.
Okay, so
that's deep.
Wait, it's really deep, but it's so shallow. The truth is, we mimic everything that we learn. So those learned behaviors, those patterns that we display as adults, when you be like, she act just like my grandma, you gonna act just like her if you don't recognize some of these patterns, right? Just being funny, guys. But the truth is, we mimic what we see.
Yep.
Now, although in most instances we try to avoid the things that made us feel uncomfortable or that made us feel unloved or misrepresented or misunderstood, most of the time we end up falling for people who put us back in that same emotional state because we don't know what it feels like to be anything else.
Absolutely. You know, it's so interesting. I remember having a supervisor back when I was getting hours, seeing clients, and being trained under a licensed supervisor before I got licensed. And he used to always say, the fruit does not fall too far from the roots.
He didn't say the tree. He said the roots.
The roots, right?
Yes.
And so we have to go back into the family dynamics. We have to go back into childhood, especially when you're finding yourself not understanding, why do I keep having this pattern in the type of man that I pick? Ooh. Why am I having this pattern in the type of friends that I pick that constantly let me down, that constantly drop the ball? Well, if you had a pattern of abandonment in your childhood, it makes it easy to pick unavailable partners, which we actually saw that demonstrated in this show.
Okay, so you guys, first episode, just on a side note, was very packed. It is very, very charging. If you are someone who is experiencing reunification after a long delay or a long awakening or whatever the word I'm looking for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you've been separated for a long time and you're finally getting to reunify. It's not always an easy, smooth process. Like we were just talking about how, like, you know, the 1 month time frame you have between finding out your loved one's going to get released and them actually starting the transition to come home, you're pretty much sandwiching 30, 40 years of emotional processing that you never got to do with them. And now you're having to process all that stuff on your own in the anticipation of having to rebuild with them from that point on.
Especially if you're an adult, because now you're reprocessing these emotions through an adult lens.
Yes.
Which, let's just keep it 100, is a very different lens. The rose-colored lenses I had when I was a child, I don't even know where to find them glasses.
They're gone, baby.
And so gone. When I am dealing with positioning in the family, right? You guys heard me earlier say, yeah, I'm the boss. I'm not really the boss, right? But I didn't learn another role. So here I am after a 21-year separation from my father, learning a new role.
Yes.
I want to see how the character develops, the new position of being someone's daughter, because that's a role.
Yes.
Right? There are responsibilities and things that you show up for in that role
Yes.
that you don't show up for or show up as in a parent role.
Absolutely.
And I want to see how that develops with her. Now, what I will also say is that the relationship correlation between the missing and unavailable father is something I want to see them go deep into later on in the show. Because today, it packed a lunch.
You see moments in text messages. You see moments in phone calls with her partner. You see moments where dad is picking up on her choice in a partner and how this doesn't seem like a good fit. And then you also see some strain in her willingness to accept his advice because she's the expert. She's the licensed marriage and family therapist. But the thing we always have to remember is we're human too.
Yes.
You know, we work with our clients and support families from 9 to 5, but from 5 until we go to bed, we are dealing with our own families and we're dealing with our own stuff. And that you don't leave that at the door just because you have this discipline now and you have these credentials and you're degreed and licensed. And so, yeah, it's super interesting just to see like even some of the cycles that the therapist herself doesn't have a lot of awareness about in her own life. And it's one episode in, so the stuff is subtle, but it's there.
It is there.
Absolutely.
So let's roll the next clip and let's bring up a few more issues that will happen.
Oh, yes. Let's get into it.
So my dad is going to try to make you like him. He's going to be charming and funny and insightful and seductive. Okay. I'm sorry, it's a lot of words. Am I supposed to call him Grandpa?
Oh.
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to let you two meet yet.
Okay. So since I am the child with a teenage child, at the time my father came home, first off, that part was not, I could not relate to not allowing my child to see my dad. Yeah. My dad was a wonderful grandfather. Even through incarceration, he did what a lot of parents don't do on the street. So I'm not complaining in that notion, but the anxiety of what it's going to look like, is it going to work? You know, will everything go smoothly, and will they build a true bond? We have been visiting my father in prison since my son was 1, and I went to every jail and prison that he was at except one place, and that was in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. It was the only place I didn't go. So they have a strong relationship. They had a strong relationship through our 15-minute phone calls, our 7-minute phone calls. Yeah. And later on in the show, we'll delve into things of that nature.
Yes.
But the anxiety of what the missing parent will bring to the table to a child who is now at a glue stage, right? Everything that comes to them at this age is they're wrapping it all up, and it's becoming who they are as a norm. And I think that was a very powerful position to express the anxiety of what that looks like for your child. She already had a negative vision of her dad that was displayed throughout the first episode in several different areas. Dating, in a decision making, in a friendship, in several things. You could see her distrust of his choices.
Yes, absolutely.
And absolutely. I think that it was a powerful thing when the son was like, all that you just said, am I supposed to call him Grandpa? Right. Because I don't know him. Who is this guy?
Yeah, yes. And you know, honestly, even as a daughter, I could relate to the uncomfortability and the vulnerability of a title like Grandpa, because I know for myself, I have my dad saved in my phone as Daddy Wash. He will always be Daddy Wash, because it took me until I was 23 years old to be able to say daddy and not father. And that's because there's an intimacy that is built emotionally when you've been able to live in the same household with your parent and be nurtured by them through your upbringing. You know what it feels like to experience them as daddy. But for me, I'm the youngest of our siblings, so I never had any core memories with my dad in the household. My only memories of my dad was of him in the penitentiary. So because of that, I didn't get to have those moments where dad taught you how to ride a bike and you fell down and you scraped your knee and he put a band-aid on and picked you up and he was daddy. Yes. I had to learn my dad as father through letters and 4-minute phone calls and other people's report of who my dad was or is. And so it wasn't until us rebuilding that closer bond and developing vulnerability with each other that I was able to relax into even calling him daddy. But the very first time was very awkward. And as soon as like I had a freedom to embrace him on that level of closeness, I will never, ever, ever not call him Daddy Wash. Like, he will always be in my phone as Daddy Wash because it means so much, you know, when you didn't just naturally grow up with that.
And it's a hard thing. So in the show, she expressed, we might have a clip of that, I'm not sure, but she expressed that basically, you know, you was there for me, but you was there for me through phone calls. It was not what you think you're giving through that call. In his mind, I was always there for you.
Yeah.
But in the transition or reception of the things that he did, it was really all about him. Yeah. And so really getting to know the core of what that feels like. It feels like abandonment. It feels like a responsibility that you didn't ask for, but you don't know how to set down either.
Right.
Right. So I hope that we do have the clip of that where they...
I'm going to check it.
Yeah.
Before we go there, I wanted to say this. I think both statements from the individualized perspective can feel very true, but we do have to develop an integrative reality in reunification because Dad is saving up his funds for that one phone call that he might only get one of those this month.
Yes.
And he wanted to spend that 4-minute one phone call on his baby girl to see how did your graduation go, right? Let's just use that. How did your graduation go? But daughter has been studying for the ACT, the stress of SAT scores and all of that stuff. She's been applying to multiple colleges. She's been trying to get good grades. She's been worrying about having to walk across the stage, and her dad is never going to be able to be there in person to see that, right? And so even just in the month of graduation, it's been daily stressors and pressures.
Yes. And
the 4 minutes was everything to Dad, but it was like a drop of water in a pond for all of the life stress that daughter has to walk through without the physical presence of Dad. So that's really important to remember. Like, from both perspectives, Dad is giving all he could in his circumstances, but all he could was not all she needed. Yes. And I think that's the brokenness of separation by way of incarceration, is there's a part of your parent you just cannot physically get. You will not be able to get the nurturing and the support that you need because they are literally restrained.
And you guys have to know that that's literal. It's
literal.
It's not a you know, we're not just saying, oh, they're restricted. No, they're restrained from participating in the life and the growth of you. And so when I think back to, and I'm just going to throw this in there because it really does tie in. Mm-hmm. In the clip, you're gonna see this clip, I know, where she says that she was fine without having her dad. Now,
too hard.
Listen, I'm a little bit misty, and anybody who knows me knows I'm a punk, and I will cry at will.
Baby, okay? And I will cry, and I'm gonna cry. Yes.
What I will say is that what he said, his response was so true that it hit me in my chest. Yeah. It was so true, so real, so vulnerable, and it was a transition from how you communicate from behind the wall. Yes. So there is no time to really process emotions there. There's no place to be vulnerable. And in truth, you can't have too many vulnerable communications because once your guard is down, you are then at risk in that place,
you're right? A target.
You are a target. Yeah. So now we can talk about that in a later show.
We're going to come back to that. That's a whole other thing.
I want to say that while we think that girls do not need a dad, that they can do it without them, the truth is there's an aspect of growth that only a father, or even in some instances a mother, can give. Yes. And I know that I'm better for having had my dad for the years that I did. I also know that I ached when he was not available to me. Absolutely. I hurt from a place that I did not know existed. Absolutely. And I'm sorry for anybody who did not have a participating father. Yes. And when I say participating, people want to use the new age version of participation, which should have been across the board, but life circumstances and societal norms did not allow for the type of participation that we get now. Mm-hmm. If you did not have that, I'm sorry. Yeah. Because let me say something. Ice skating to the candy house. Roller skating to the candy house to get ice cream cones and fall falling is a real thing. When your daddy got to come and get you off the sidewalk.
It's a core memory.
It's a core memory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also you gonna be all right. It's also a man in a place of what's
protection.
Yes, protection.
Safety, covering, rescue, support.
Something that
somebody has your back.
In my front. When I
said, somebody got your back in your front. Somebody figured out the things that you could not possibly figure out.
And gave it to me in a way that my mother never could. So that doesn't take away from what my mother gave me, right? But there's a different tone and a different absorption for you as a girl with a dad.
Yes.
And I ache, honestly. I've been through this with you. We have had really good conversations about it.
Yeah.
For what she missed.
Mm-hmm.
With having a dad and an older brother who really participated in the day-to-day life is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that she missed that because I experienced it.
Yeah.
And when I be thinking, like, if you could have just,
Yeah.
but we're going to go to the next clip.
Yeah. You just go drop that on us. And
I am.
Just go,
because
suck your tears up. Let's keep going.
First off, if you know me, that's what I do, right? But there's going to be plenty of times to explore the emotional vulnerability that you get from being able to be coddled. I'm going to tell this story real quick. When I found out I was pregnant with my son, and I didn't really know what pregnancy was about. I didn't have a lot of information. Mm-hmm. And I had an apartment, and my mom stayed on one side of the apartment and I stayed on the other. And so my dad came to visit, and he came in and, baby girl, he calls me Fatty. Fatty, where you at? And so when he came in, I was not feeling well. My whole body hurt. And I was like, can you just hold me? As a big old baby, right? I'm an adult with a baby in my stomach. And he climbs in the bed, like my dad, climbs in the bed and coddles me so close. Literally, it was probably only 6 minutes, but that was the best 6 minutes of my pregnancy. And for that, I know that having a dad matters.
Yes, it does. And let me just say something about this too, because I was, out of our siblings, the person that did not get a dad through my childhood, right? Mm-hmm. And the pain of that, is something in the midst of experiencing it that is deeper than you understand. You don't even know what you're missing, but there's a hole. You feel that there's a hole. You live from a place that something is missing, and you don't even have language. And for me, all of that stuff came back up when my dad was coming home. And so I just want to encourage somebody who feels like, dang, I never got that. Let me tell you the beauty on the other side, the restoration that comes with the reunification. And reunification does not have to be dependent on your dad coming home.
No.
If you guys go back on my YouTube channel to 8 years ago, before I took a hiatus, I talked about a video called Forgiveness Father's Day, where I was actively at that time rebuilding that emotional intimacy and that open communication and relationship with my dad. And we did that while he was still in prison through letters and phone calls. And it wasn't that we weren't having them. It was just that we were more open with each other to develop that daddy-daughter, not father-daughter, that daddy-daughter relationship before he came home. So I got to experience the fruit of doing that groundwork with my dad to restore what I never got as a child. So I got to be a girl dad as a grown woman. And it's not too late. It's not too late to get an experience of your father in a new way. Yes, you will never get what you didn't get, right? What you did not get to have, the opportunities for that is gone. That childhood, you will never have all those precious memories with your dad as that version of you. But this version of you still gets to have something special with your dad from today forward.
Because we still need our dad.
We still need our dads.
Okay,
yes.
I'm going to ask you a question, but we're going to do it after the clip, because I think that there's some key things that you said that's going to tie into one of the clips that we have coming up.
Okay.
And I want to bring it up then.
Let's get into it then. All right, so let's roll the clip.
Hey, You ready to be unprisoned? Yes, you can.
All right, so y'all see all of that emotion on her face in that hug.
Yes.
So this clip was really important to me. That literally took me back to a core memory I had as a child. Because like I said, all of my memories of my dad as a child were in the prison system. I remember the court date where he was sentenced. I remember visiting him, sitting in waiting rooms like that, and you're just waiting. You're feeling anxious, waiting for the moment that they bring them out. First of all, it takes forever. Yes. You be there for hours waiting on your father to come out, and you don't know if they're going to let him come see you or not. The only option you have is to keep waiting. But I remember one specific memory where all of my family, we went on this trip to see my dad. He was out of town, a far distance away. I think we were in Colorado on this specific trip. So we had flew out of town specifically to see my dad. And whatever was going on in the prison, that particular prison and the politics of the prison, there was some type of gang issue that did not involve my dad, but it just affected like the lockdowns that were happening at that time. And so there were certain colors that you could not wear, but we weren't made aware of that before we arrived. And so I happened to go and I was wearing blue, and you weren't able to come in if you were wearing blue because it could cause like a riot or something to start up. So the time that we had for my family to be able to get through the detectors and all the processes to see my dad, if they would have waited for me to go back to, what do they call it?
Friends outside.
Friends outside, where you could go and change your clothes into donated clothes they have available if something you're wearing will cause you to not get in. If my family would have went back with me, they would have not gotten in to see my dad. So I had to, as a little kid, about that same age, go wait in Friends outside while my family went and visited my dad. And I just remember that same little girl feeling like I probably was coloring. I know they had a TV and I was watching TV, and then I'm just like thinking like, did they get in? You know, what are they talking about? How does he look? Like, you know, how is he? I did not get to see him with them. So that took me back to sitting there at jail waiting. And, you know, I'll be honest, because of my experience as a child, I could not even watch jail movies growing up. It was a trauma trigger for me. I hated prison movies. I don't like prisons to this day. Like, if there's a job opportunity or like a school and it looks like a jail, I don't want to be there. Like, because I just remember those waiting room experiences. It just didn't feel good.
Very traumatic. I feel like prison is designed to break down, not just the prisoner, but the family as well.
Yes.
The only way you get submission to the new rules and the new order of things is to break away from the old order of things. See, in the home or on the streets, these people who they throw in prison had free choice, right? And as long as you are expressing free choice or free will, you are not conforming to the system. And so they make it very difficult to visit. And for those of you that know, you know. And if you don't, I'm glad that you don't.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus, that you don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, in that clip that we just saw, we saw our main character, the marriage and family therapist, seeing her dad for the first time after many years of separation. Mm-hmm. But we also saw it very awkward.
Oh.
Was it not awkward?
It was so awkward. He wasn't awkward.
No.
But she was awkward.
She was awkward to receive him, right?
Yes.
So in many circumstances, people think that the people coming home, coming back to quote-unquote society is going to have the hardest time because technology and the rules and all of these different things. But we don't realize that receiving someone from jail might be more awkward
or anxious
for us than it is for the person who's coming home. Now,
yes, it is.
If you guys didn't look at her face, run it back and check it out.
Yeah.
Run it back.
Y'all, you want me to run it back?
No, they gonna run it back.
Y'all gotta go watch it. If you didn't watch it, go run it back, because she, in her emotion, like in her face, you saw all of her emotions. Like, she was getting flooded with everything at once.
Yes.
And I can relate. Like, I totally know the feeling. That wasn't my feeling when Dad came home, but that was my feeling for all the weeks up until the night before. I could not sleep.
Yes.
I had really, really bad anxiety. And I think that hole that I talked about, that you don't know what the name of this absence is that you felt all your life, but you feel it inside of you that something's missing, that rose to the surface. And I had no peace. I was so overwhelmed with anxiety. And I literally, like, prayed my way through that. I was at an all-night prayer night, just so happened to be scheduled the day before my dad comes home. So I left prayer at 6 a.m. and drove to Roscoe's for 7 a.m. to meet my dad. And it was like God's strength and help that gave me a peace and joy that stabilized my emotions. But I was literally battling with chronic anxiety for 3 weeks before my dad came home.
And I think that that's expected. I think that that's not talked about, right? Again, the what's talked about is the dress out for the prisoner, where they're going to stay. I'm laughing because we're going to get to talk about these cell phones when they come home, right? And,
the learning curve.
The learning curve. The different things that the prisoner is experiencing. But the truth is there's a lot of experiences that we have as a receiver,
yes,
right? So even if it's not your dad, this could be your boyfriend, your baby father. It could be your wife.
Yes, it can.
Your husband.
Anybody.
You have developed a new norm that does not include them in a day-to-day life, and all of a sudden, well, it's not really sudden, but one day your life is changing.
Yeah.
Right?
It does feel like all of a sudden, though, because we had 20 years of no dad physically here, and then we had a 1 month time. We found out our dad was coming home, and then he was weeks later arriving. So all of the motions to support his new life outside of prison had to be made in 1 month's time.
Yes. And that was later I'll tell you about the phone calls. It was not easy, okay?
Yeah.
And then we're gonna get into the fact that we don't know what's happening in the show, but we're gonna watch, right?
Yeah.
But my dad transitioned to stay with my sister.
Yes.
Our
sister Erica.
Yes. And who was also a therapist.
Yes.
And so we'll talk about that. What it looks like when your adult parent comes to stay with you, the adult child.
Yes.
When you have lacked the connection between childhood and adulthood.
Yeah.
But we're going to watch a little bit more and see what it looks like for our actors on this show.
Okay. So y'all ready for the next clip?
Let's go.
All right, let's get it.
Team, let's get it.
Okay. What do we have here?
Look at your phone.
No one can go 5 minutes without looking at their phone. It's like to me.
Technology. So,
yeah.
Here is a talk. I'm going to give it to you guys really quickly, right? So my dad comes home, and so he went to a halfway house. Mm-hmm. And there you are responsible for all of your own things, but you're not allowed to have the internet during your initial time there. The internet is a no. Mm-hmm. So, and if anybody under 40, you didn't even know phones came without the internet. I bet you didn't know that.
We would make it, for sure.
So he's coming from a time where when he left there was no internet, and he's back in a time where the internet is so fast. You surfing the web and you got things back to back to back. Okay, so I find a phone that does not have internet, and I don't even know if y'all can understand what this phone looked like. I kid you not, the phone was $19, and that included the insurance. It was the only phone that didn't have the internet. So I bought the phone. We get this line set up. You have to put a password on the phone. You do all these little things, right? And so people are now texting him because we've given out the number. He's able to communicate. People can call him. But if you know, they're gonna text first. 2016, we was texting, right?
Oh yeah.
And so he's like, they hit me so fast. I want to tell you that, you know how when you look on the phone and it says to ABC, if you want to spell cat, you have to say to get CA. You have to go, two.
Yeah, you gotta keep pressing.
And then you gotta go to the next one, you gotta go two. Like, you have to do that. He said, I be getting one thing out, it take me 20 minutes, and they hit me with 4 or 5 texts.
Yeah.
He had not seen
yes.
the technology.
Yeah.
So when he said, you can't stay off your phone for 5 minutes, And
looked around like, dang, everybody really gang. Like, this is the culture now.
And it's so funny even to see Dad now when he gets, listen, anytime his phone dings, he's like, wait a minute,
they calling me. It's so many people calls coming in. I can't keep up. It's just, it's so funny because it's an age thing.
It is.
And then it's the unique circumstances of being literally locked away from the progression of society and technology for 20 years. You're hit with both of that. Like, to be an elder who's already not used to the iPhone, but you ain't never even seen one. You're like, what? Why is it glass on here? What is this? Right? And then also just all of the developments that have happened while you were gone is like almost a burden of that learning is on top of the limits you already feel you have because, you're in your elder years.
And the learning curve is great for anybody who transitions into a digital society. So if you worked in an office and you had to work remotely since 2020, then you understand.
Yeah. We've been right there with you. You guys know my practice is virtual. I see my clients online. So
and that's not how you started out. You started out with big, thick files and books and notes that you had handwritten and all of that. So when I did case management, that is exactly what I had. I would be having 27 files, all with 37 pages each, carrying them out and then you transition into digital. Like that's a learning curve. When I got to my job, I was like, wait a minute. I gotta get accustomed to everything being in the computer.
Yes.
So imagine that without the history of the internet.
Right.
That curve is like a baby.
That curve is a mountain swoop.
A 90-degree angle, like no.
Yeah.
Like
it's a lot to learn. It's a lot.
And so we see some of that in this show, which I think is very true to form. Very true to what's real.
Yeah. That's relatable for sure.
And funny. If you guys have not watched the show and you guys are tuning in here first, take 30 minutes. It is a comedy drama.
Yeah.
And
watch it.
It's actually pretty good.
It's good.
First episode in, pretty good.
It's good.
Let's watch the next clip.
Okay. Let's get into it.
It don't make no difference. If the female's in love, the man don't love her back. That woman gotta be careful of that shit, Paige.
Are you giving me relationship advice? Because I am the marriage and family therapist. Licensed and everything.
That is paper, girl. You don't understand the male psychology, and if I can prevent it. God, man. Don't you like that?
You're okay.
Okay. That was good.
That was good.
We had to talk about this clip because, first of all, the beginning part of Dad giving his daughter relationship advice, because remember, we seen some stuff happening, right? Like in the parent and the partner is only one letter different, right?
Right.
And Dad was picking up on it like a dad, right? And so he's giving her some advice, but if you watch the show, you'll also see where it's pretty clear that daughter is not in full agreement with Dad's relationship patterns, right? And so she's almost like, who are you to tell me, not only from how you live within your relationships, but also because, sir, I do this. Like, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so just a lot of like pride there, right? Because we have to remember, even if our parents made not the best choices, there's still some wisdom to be given. And I can attest to having to learn this too, because there are some times where my dad will tell me things that he don't even take that advice for himself. And I'm just like, I would love to see you do it before you tell me. But I know it's coming from love. I know it's coming from him wanting the best for me, even if he didn't choose the best options always for himself. And so that stood out to me. But I wanted to talk about that ending when they called his name really loud in the Starbucks, the Starbucks, because he's older. He don't know,
and he hasn't been here.
They called his name really loud, and he experienced a trigger.
Yes,
that was a trauma trigger.
And this is the thing I want to really zone in on Receiving somebody means understanding that for everything that we've experienced on the streets, they have experienced it up close and personal because they can't back away from things when it's happening inside of there. So their trauma triggers might look different, but they've been through some of the same types of trauma. And you have to give room and grace while they transition into a new normal. I'm just going to throw this out there, not because it's small, but because I feel like it matters. When my dad came home, we were just talking about the differences, laughing about the seat belts, right? I grew up in an era where you could ride in the back of a truck, a pickup truck, with no seat belts and no back door. You literally just get in, climb up by the window, and ride wherever you're going on the freeway and everything, right?
Goodness, I didn't get that era.
You didn't get that era. And then transition to the automatic seat belt, where you get in the car. My son had a Honda Accord, an older model. I don't remember the year. And so when you get in, the door, the automatic thing automatically goes up. Right, and he was like, "What the," because it automatically go up to your chest, and he was like, "What?" I said, "Okay, this is an automatic seatbelt, and this is an old car, but he missed the hours of that." And then we were talking, and he talked about family was together eating, and he said the fork was heavy. The fork was heavy because he had been eating with plastic for 20 years. Whoa. So when you get a metal fork and you feel the weight of that in your hand, understand that is something. That is a transition for them. We think it nothing because a fork is so light for us. Right. But if you are using a paper plate or a plastic tray and someone gives you a glass or ceramic bowl and a metal fork, that feels very heavy in my mind. After he said that, I wasn't aware.
Yes. It could even take you back, like a flashback to what it was like in those moments where you went without the simple pleasures of having a real fork. And I think that's what the dad here was experiencing, is like he's out, he's interacting on his first day in the normal world outside of the halfway house, and somebody calls his name, almost like being caught on the yard, right? Like that is a flashback. That's a trigger, and it just was the barista trying to give him his drink. But when you're experiencing a trauma trigger, your brain and your body does not know the difference from the actual trauma. So I loved her response.
I did too.
It was so comforting and nurturing and reassuring. It was grounding him. You're okay. You're here.
Right.
You're not there.
And it was eye contact. It wasn't just thrown off like, oh, you all right. It was present. Aware.
Tone. I mean.
And it was reassurance. No.
Yeah.
It's not what you thought it was. You're okay.
Yeah.
And the minute I saw that, I was like, yes! Because I'm a punk.
Yes! Yeah.
We all have had people come home from prison who are not the same emotionally or mentally. And that it's a world of its own. So it literally engulfs you and then throws you out.
Yes, it does.
It engulfs you. It makes you change everything about who you are, the way you think, the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you dress, what you watch, what you read, and then it kicks you on the street.
Yeah, and you have to relearn yourself, and you have to take off those. Yes, you have to take off those prison clothes and re-put on your identity before you became inmate number such and such and such. Yeah. You almost have to like retell yourself who you are. It's a really powerful thing when you've been through so much trauma back to back, and it just has become like a survival lifestyle of living through the trauma. You're able to recount the storyline very easily. Mm-hmm. So you can say really horrible and hard things without a lot of arousal. You can say it just totally like calm, straightforward, like, oh yeah, this X, Y, and Z happened, or such and such and such happened. You can hold it together because you have to in that environment.
In any environment. It's not just prison.
It's not just prison, but any harsh environment where you're not safe to let your emotions and your process of your heart come forward. Yeah. But when you get out of where the trauma had been continuously happening, sometimes you can't control when that trigger comes forward, and you do need safety and support around you to comfort you through it.
And the truth is, my era, right? If you grew up in the 90s, you know what it is. You are taught that trauma is just survival. You just need to get through it. And if you guys don't know, My dad was a 2019 Webby Award winner for the documentary about his life.
Mr. Wash.
Mr. Wash. You guys can find it here on YouTube.
Yes, watch it.
Please do.
Yeah.
It will give you some insight on what I'm talking about and what I'm getting ready to say. In my community, and I don't just mean my neighborhood, I mean in my community as a person of color, coming from the South, where my grandparents are from, right? Mm-hmm. It was just about surviving. So the time that we have now, where we are really fixing out and putting in order and calling things what they are, that hasn't always been it. It was get through it to get to it, and that's what you have to do. You get through it to get to it, and to it could be anything. It could just be dinner. You're gonna get through whatever this trauma is and get on with it so we can eat dinner. It was survival, and you live in survival every single day. And not because your family is so horrible, but the world was rough. And if you don't have a way out, there wasn't a ladder set before you telling you left foot, left foot, pull, left foot. Then no system, right? Mm-hmm. You get to it to get through it. Yeah. And so that mindset allows you to stay sane in a world of chaos. And it's like that in prison, but it's like that in some households. It's like that on some blocks. It's like that in some neighborhoods. Yeah. And it's not just the ghetto. I hate that people think if you live in an urban society or the concrete jungle that makes it hard. There's hard times in suburbia.
Yeah, it is. You could be in a big old mansion and have no peace.
No peace. So we want to make sure that we're calling things what they are, but also giving us the tools that we can use to call it that and get past it.
Yes.
Work through it.
Yeah. I love what you said, work through it. Because I feel like, too, there's been a pressure when it comes to trauma in our community, especially in either the Black community or urban community, where you're not even expected to get through it. You're expected to just get over it. Mm-hmm. Just get over it. And some things are process-based. Like, people always say time heals all wounds.
You don't.
Time does not heal all wounds.
It's a lie.
Time makes room for the process to heal, but time itself is not a healer.
But you can't heal without the techniques or the tools, right?
Exactly. Okay. Which is a part of the process, which is why you can't get over it. You do have to go through it. You do have to get through it with strategies to heal as you go. And that's the part that we often don't get the grace to have.
I don't think that this is a new form of grace, and we have talked extensively about my experiences throughout my life, and just acknowledging that, again, there was no time to process. When you are concerned with the day-to-days, right? Yeah. You don't have time to process, or you don't. The truth is, there was no time for that. No. Because everything wasn't moving fast, so it took a long time to go where you was going, and you need to get on the road. Mm-hmm. You need to get moving. Yep. So the time that we now can sit with ourselves, taking time for ourselves, self-care is the best thing.
Self-care, soft life.
Listen, it's the best thing they could have come up with, because I'm going to be honest, I didn't come from self-care. I came from care for what's important and move on with everything else.
Yep, or care for everybody else. Yeah. And you got to be the strong one. We see that, the other flip side of having a loved one incarcerated is the single mom or the single dad left behind to do all the roles. Yes. And carry the household and carry the family forward. And I saw that with my mom, and so that was the pattern I learned is you take care of everybody else and make sure everybody else is okay. And then there's nothing left over for you.
And no guarantee they're going to come back and look out for you. I want to throw that notion in the trash. Yeah. If you think that holding somebody down is a guarantee that you're going to get looked out for, it's not.
Why we down? Why we got to be down?
Well, I just want to be up.
Can we be up? Like, yeah.
But I'm hoping that they explore some of that in the show. We have only gotten through episode 1. Do we have more clips?
I think we just have a little bit left. So let's see what we got here, and we'll talk a little bit about it. And we'll be wrapping up soon until the next one, okay?
Until next week, guys. Let's see what we have.
All right, so let's see what this is.
This was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, some of you might know that my dad is getting out of prison after 17 years, and today's the day. So we're just at the store, picking up some stuff, and he has disappeared. And I have no idea where he is. I don't know if he's in the bathroom or if he's in the detergent aisle. No, or maybe he's in Leavenworth. That is a prison, if you did not know. And hey! Ah, there he is.
Okay. So let's talk about it.
Earlier you talked about dating advice, right? I just want to bring this up real quick.
Y'all gotta watch it. We ain't gonna let y'all see that part, but tell them about it.
So she, in the coffee shop, he was giving her some advice. And he was like, listen, and he might not be the one for you, but not saying that. But he was basically telling her, like, if he don't love you, then I wanna. And she's like, yeah, you telling me about relationships? I am the marriage and family therapist. She is a marriage and family therapist right now on live discussing that her father is MIA in a store somewhere and rides up on him carousing,
fraternizing, okay,
with some lady in an aisle. I need you guys to watch what happens in that clip and the way that she describes her dad. Yep. Now, out the window with trash parenting. I'm going to say it up front, and whoever don't like it, box me in the comments. Understand that we only give what we've learned, right? So either we're given the most of it or we're given the least of it, but we're only given what we learned. He, as a parent, apparently was not giving what she thought he should and did not make proper choices when it came to relationships and how to interact. Yeah. Because in this clip, she drug him down the aisle.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
with her words.
Right. With the lady. She drug him with the lady down the aisle. But there are some other things that happen in the show in regards to relationships that I think is really key. And there are some vulnerable moments, and I think that it would be excellent for us to see some of that while we listen to... Well, no, when you watch this and you watch the show, you'll recall what she said in the grocery store. Yeah. And then let's cue up the next clip, because
let me just say this last thing though. When you guys watch that scene, you'll see right before she went live, she noticed that her dad was missing and she became really anxious. You can see the anxiety rising and the panic building up for her. And it's so interesting that she's a therapist, and we're not perfect as therapists. Please take us off your pedestal because we get off at 5, okay? But it's interesting just to be reminded that we need the tools too. We need to use the tools that we teach our clients, because her first coping outlet that she reached for was going live on social media, right? She did not even take the moment to sit with the angst that her dad possibly was gone again. Yes. Right? Yes. That re-triggered feeling of where is he? What happened? And then I know the history of why he's in prison, so I don't know if she was also triggered to, feel like, did he get into something that quick, that could threaten his freedom and cause him to go back, right? Like, you can see that she was wearing all of that, but she almost ran over it so quick to get to social media, and it almost like she broke that raw emotion with like a cover up, right? Of showing up on social media and her, online presence. And I just wondered what would happen if she would have sat with those feelings and found him more from a vulnerable place, rather than let me get this lady up out of here from away from you. If she would have been able to say to her dad, like, I almost got afraid for a second. I was looking for you and I didn't know if something happened to you. I thought you were gone.
But that comes with security and time.
It does.
You cannot reach for somebody from a vulnerable perspective when you're not sure they're going to reach for you back. They're going to get you, right?
You need
so
safety for
she's not safe yet, right? Yep. I hope she gets safe in this series.
Yeah, I hope so too.
But I also want you guys to know that vulnerability starts with being vulnerable. So you have to acknowledge that is what you need.
You take a risk first.
And I haven't always done that. Yeah. Right? So I am the one who's the crybaby with the gangster coding. I'm gonna cry for everything, but be ready to fight in the same second, right? Not physically, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So to be vulnerable, it's hard. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it before, right?
It is.
She hits me with, it's your ego. Really? It's my ego? But whatever it is that makes you feel unsafe in the moments where you need to open the door for security, you have to put that down. You have to pick up the choice.
Yeah. And more than ego is really fear.
Okay.
It's really, really fear.
It is fear.
It's I don't want to put myself out on a limb because I don't know if you're going to catch my heart. Right?
Oh, that was good.
You know, and that's, I think, what she's dealing with, right? She
well, let's watch the clip first, and then let's watch the clip.
Yeah.
Let's watch the clip.
So we'll get into our last clip here, and we'll be talking about it with you guys. Here we go.
Well, now, you're not the easiest to be around either, darling. All right. I had a lot of time to think about this. Joy, I got one daughter. You got one daddy. Are you gonna have to work this out? I really missed you.
I've actually done just fine without you. Isn't that weird? I'm totally fine.
No, I understand. You have to think you were doing fine.
Uh-oh.
Look, awkward vulnerability. You gotta move.
Oh, yeah, let me take us back so you guys can see us full screen again. So,
okay, listen.
Go ahead.
I just don't want to give it to you, right? But I talked about it earlier, guys. This clip was so powerful to me. It took my breath away.
Yeah.
It took my breath away. Now, mind you, this is his first day out. And if you guys have ever been with someone on a first day out, it is not this. I mean, they ran across 17 different scenarios in the day.
Ooh.
And in this moment, he saw an opportunity to reach for his daughter. And remember, I just said
he took the risk of vulnerability.
He took the risk, right? After being in a place where you don't have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, listen, I got one daughter, you got one daddy.
What we gonna do?
We got to work this out.
Yeah.
While she still has her gangster coating on, she's like,
I'm fine. I've been good.
I did well without you. I didn't need you. And he said, I understand. You had to believe that.
That baby, was your survival technique.
Baby, that's how you survive without your dad.
Oh, and you don't have to do that no more.
Wait, I wish he would have said that.
Yeah.
But here we are.
That was what's called a bid for connection, right?
Yes.
He's putting an arm out, trying to tell her in a subtle way, you don't have to do that no more.
It's not required.
Yeah. And hopefully they'll get there to go beyond an arm into a hug, but that was a precious moment, and it was so true. I remember myself I used to, just out of the situation of, my dad having 2 life sentences, I used to say, well, I guess my brother's going to have to walk me down the aisle.
Ooh. And
we get used to saying what it is versus really saying vulnerably what we want.
Yes.
That's not what I wanted, but that's what I thought I only had. That's the only option I had, and so, man, she had to tell herself what she had to tell herself.
Now, how long do you think it will be before she recognizes that, no, I need my dad?
Yeah, I hope we get mid-season and start to see her having a turnaround. I hope that she gets a real good therapist, okay? I hope that there's a therapist for the therapist. I tend to be a therapist for the therapist. And it's so important. And then I have a therapist too as a therapist. I hope she gets a real good therapist. And I hope she also gets what we call a corrective experience. Yes. Wherever there was brokenness, wherever there was a pattern that taught you that this horrible thing will always happen this way, and it gave you this negative belief system and expectation for your life or your relationships or your parents or whatever, sometimes an experience comes along that loves you back to belief. And that becomes a corrective experience for your life where you realize all man ain't X, Y, and Z. Or you realize the whole world is not against me. Yes. Everybody is not a hater because you found that one friend that was just supportive off the back, no questions asked. I hope something happens in this show, even if it's not directly through her dad first, but where she sees some type of redemptive grace from somebody's life. Maybe there'll be somebody else that had a similar path as her dad, and then they have such a powerful, gracious turnaround where she's able to see their humanity and then come back and see the humanity of her dad. I don't know. I want some healing for her.
Right. This is a comedy. My sister is always in the love spell situation. Okay. This is a comedy.
Yes.
And we have to be able to laugh with some of the rough times. In a moment, it's never funny.
Yeah.
But when it's over, sometimes it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I want for them to have a get back in this.
Yes.
And I want it to be I want it to be funny and redeeming.
Joyous
Yes,
laughter.
Yes. But I want to see this last clip because this one is a good one too.
Yeah, so we just talked about wanting her to get some healing. So let's hear what the little Hearst has to say. Hold on, let's get the playback. All right.
This is what I'm talking about. You think I built it for after 30 years. Talk about repetition, compulsion. These men are going to keep you feeling the same way over and over until you get a healing.
Okay, sis. So I'm going to let you have it on this one.
Is this really it? Okay. Until you get a healing. I thought that this was so powerful.
Yep.
There's more in this scene, and if you guys are watching, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. There's intense. So much more in this.
It's intense. So let me just prime it. We're looking at the inner child of her.
Yes.
This is that little girl whose dad went away to prison, speaking out in a moment where she was triggered.
And let me tell you something. Triggers come in all forms. When I say all forms,
oh yeah.
If you ever listen to somebody walk with flip-flops and it be like, okay, that's a trigger for someone.
Yep, it could take you back to a time, a space, a sound, a moment
that you cannot escape because you can't control when the triggers come. Exactly. Anybody who wears a swishy sweatsuit, if you wear one of those Nike Sergio Tacchini Jones that just it runs me low. It runs me to junior high in bad shoes. I'm just saying it takes me there.
Why bad shoes?
That was my life. Don't judge me. Judge yourself. Okay. And so the swishy suits, the flip flops, and what happened in this moment.
Yeah.
These things took her back to a point where she was not in control of decisions. And the inner child spoke to the adult and gave some good business. Yeah. I'm saying to you now, if you're not watching or if you're sensitive to swear words, this might not be the show for you. Okay? Yeah. But if you can take it with a grain of salt and look at it for the big picture, this clip,
yeah, it's good.
It's a clip.
It's a clip.
It's a clip.
We couldn't even put the whole clip because it's a clip.
Because it's a clip.
It's a clip.
And in that, you will find that the way you heal, the way you begin to heal is to go back to the first time you felt that way and really handle that emotion and look at it with a new lens. Yeah. You have to begin to look at it from an adult's standpoint.
Yes, you do. You have to integrate your adult's perspective back into that childhood wound.
Because if you don't, you're going to forever be living these moments.
Absolutely.
And if that person in your head tells you to slap them first, you still living in these moments.
You still 6. You still 6 years old.
And sometimes that's a good age.
That's all right. So sometimes that's where you at is where you at. We're not condoning violence at all.
Who said that? Who said that?
So, y'all, we're going to wrap it up with this very last clip, and we love to hear your thoughts and continue along this journey. So, let's see what happens in this clip, and we'll come right back. All right. So the angst of the back and forth pace, I need to go because I feel flooded, I feel triggered, I feel overwhelmed with emotion, but I want my dad. Oh. And I don't want him here in this situation where he can maybe go back.
Well, they got to watch the clip to see what he could go back to.
Yeah, you got to see.
You got to watch it.
But then she turns around and then she comes back again because then there's also that parent type of childhood experience where you have to parent your irresponsible child. So it's a tug of war that she's going through between, do I go back and get him and parent him in this moment? Do I be vulnerable as a daughter and say I need my dad? Do I protect myself and get away from a toxic loved one? Like, what do I do?
It's a toxic loved one for me.
You know? I saw it. It was all in the walk.
And the walk ran me low.
I mean,
the walk was click, clack, click, clack, flip, flop, flip, flop. But But let's keep it real. The anxiety of handling a situation where you feel like it's going to lead to what you know to be true. It's going to lead to old patterns, old ways of behavior, old anxiety, old trauma. You're going to end up reliving this story again. It will put you in that I cannot decide what to do.
Yes.
And I'm sick of trying with you. That moment is I'm sick of trying with you, but I need one more try.
Yeah.
I need one more try.
Yeah.
I'm going to close out my statements on this episode. Episode 1 was a doozy. It was a doozy.
It was a doozy.
30 minutes of 150 emotions.
Yeah, it was. All the emotions.
Yes. Opening day out the gate was they came out running. They wasn't playing.
Yeah, they went through a lot in this first day back home. It was like a lot going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a week's worth of events
more than
happening all at once.
Yes,
which was intense for this family. So we love to stay connected with you all. We want to hear your thoughts throughout the season. If you could, in the comments, tell us what you thought. Tell us what parts stood out to you, even parts we didn't get a chance to talk about. Also, if you guys binge watch, whoever is the binge watchers, okay,
you my people,
without giving it away, let us know the things from episode 2 that you would like us to talk about next week.
Yes.
And we will love to keep going and sharing our experiences. And then also, if you haven't gotten a chance to, please check out Mr. Wash on YouTube, our documentary of our dad's story.
Mr. Wash on YouTube.
Yes.
And you can follow him, Mr. Wash the Artist,
Absolutely.
on Instagram.
Yes. And you'll get to hear more about our story. So where can they find you? I mean, what are you doing with Talk? And how can they keep up with you?
Okay, so you guys can see all of my handles on the screen. Again, my name is Bayon, and I am the host of Topics of Conversation, better known as Talk.
Yes.
So let's talk.
Talk, let's talk.
Let's talk. You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. They didn't kick me off of Facebook. Y'all know Metaverse don't play with me. I don't know what it is. Metaverse don't.
She in jail. She need to be imprisoned from Facebook jail.
They hacked me though. They hacked me and then they blame me. Right? Okay. But you guys can also find me sometimes over there on the Book of the Face.
Oh yeah.
In the verse of the meta.
Yes.
And now where
you sounded like your daddy, like you missed out on the socials.
No, because they treat me bad. I'm not gonna give you the right handle. They treat me bad. I'm not gonna give you the right handle. Right? You the Book of the Face when you done kick me off.
Listen. Yes.
So where are you?
Okay, so I am doing all things therapy in my private practice, Kingdom Counseling Solutions. You can follow along my Instagram page and Facebook page at CPT MFT because we're from Compton and I am an MFT. So I talk about all things therapy, and I'll be having a depression group opening up for adults that are overcoming the winter blues in this spring. So if you're interested, reach out to me at CPT MFT. And then also, you can watch me here on Flutterly Lovely. We are both posting our episodes on Talk and Flutterly Lovely. And then even when this season is over, Bayon has amazing episodes in store for Talk. I have some really amazing content in store for Flutterly Lovely, where I talk about transformations through the love of God. So I want to build a sisterhood, a community of women that are growing in their life and want to connect with other positive women doing cool things. So join us, follow us, and come back here on Mondays for episode 2.
We'll see you guys later.
See you later.